Welcome to the Sacred Emergence Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is a place where you'll be guided to living your most aligned life so that your truest, most radiant self can emerge. We'll be jamming on topics ranging from spirituality, entrepreneurship, to wellness and lifestyle design, and everything in between that can support you to grow, evolve, and shine, all the while not taking ourselves too seriously. So if you're ready to step into your leadership, break through limiting beliefs, own all of who you are, and expand in abundance, grab yourself your faith cup of tea and let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sacred Emergence. It's Michelle Wong here, and I have another solo epi for you. And I am sitting here on a Saturday afternoon with, I splurged over Black Friday and I bought a nebulizing diffuser. So I have my essential oils going, and all of this is new to me. I actually never have worked with a diffuser, and so I'm just so excited. And all I need is like some holiday music flowing in the background to really be like vibing. But it won't make sense for me to play music as I'm recording this. But yeah, having a really chill Saturday so far. And so if this is your first time tuning in, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back. Always a pleasure to have you. And so grateful. But yeah, today's episode is going to be kind of a blend of two things. And really it comes back to how do we want to show up for 2020. So we are heading towards the end of the year. And, you know, if you're into like, oh, it's a new decade, like we're heading into a new decade, right? And so it's a great time, right? As we're heading 2 weeks left-ish before the end of the year, at the time of this recording, it's such a great time now to reflect how this year has gone for you. So doing like a year in review, and also like, how do you want next year to go? How do you want it to look like? And I say it's such a great time of the year because it is, and we also have a chance to do things differently for the next year. And it doesn't even have to be next year. We can do things differently tomorrow, right? And the next second and the next minute. But usually how we operate is, let's think about a larger plan. So let's look at it from that lens, and knowing that a lot of times you don't have to wait that long, right? You can start right now to make a change. And one of the things that, as I've been diving deeper into human design, so for those of you who have been following, listening to the episodes, or connecting with me on social media, you'll know that I've been obsessed with human design, and I've integrated that into my work and offering one-on-one readings. And just really like when we dive deeper into this work, even looking at astrology, we're all incredibly unique. We all have amazing gifts, and each of our gifts is different. We have different strengths. And at the same time, so many of us have been conditioned to do things a certain way. And even in how we make decisions and how we've been taught to make decisions. And that plays so well into this topic of what do we want next year to look like for us? How do we want to be? So I wanted to, pull in a little bit of human design and also talk about things that have been unfolding in my world of how I want to show up outside of human design, and just kind of food for thought. So we'll be riffing on this for this episode. But one of the interesting things that as I've been looking at human design charts and as I've been learning about human design is how we make decisions is actually not through the linear mind. And I don't remember if I've shared this in past or previous episodes. However, I'll mention it again. So like only 2% of the population is designed to actually make decisions through logic, right? Passing it through the mind. 98%, so the rest of us, which is the majority of the population, 98% of us are designed to make decisions through our body, right? Trusting the body's wisdom that's coming up. And, depending on your human design chart, there is a different way of how that operates. It becomes more specific. But overall, our neck down is actually how we're designed to make decisions and how we're supposed to, flow in life. But we've been taught to make decisions through the linear mind, right? To make the pros and cons list, to to trust the logic. Does it make logical sense? Like all of that. And because of that, we kind of ignore our body's wisdom, right? Oftentimes that first initial hit of yes or no, or that first instinct, or that gut feeling, or like, what speaking through our voice, and that first, like the reactions that come out and trusting the truth of that, those are all actually how we're supposed to make decisions through the body. But so often when we hear that, we have that inkling, we channel that, oh, is that true, through our mind. And our mind is actually designed to not make um, our mind is actually not really designed to make decisions like that. And because of that, it ends up coming from fear, right? We end up making decisions based on fear of what makes sense from what we see in the present moment, not from the truth and the wisdom that's coming through from us energetically, through the wisdom of the universe. So there's just so much deconditioning from that. And if you're curious, the 2% of the population that is designed to make decisions from the mind is if you are a mental projector. And that's 2% of the population, right? And so you'll know that based on your chart if you plug in your birth info and your human design chart. But for the rest of us, it's meant to be made through the body in terms of decision. And it's just so interesting because as we head into, the new year, and as this is like I said, it's such a great time to start looking at the year in review and all that. One of the typical ways that we, the typical strategy, so to speak, to, create what you want to create for next year is to be specific. And that's pretty general advice in the personal growth world, in the new age world, to write down everything that it is that you want. How is it that you want it to look? Be specific in all the details, how it is you want it to taste, feel, and all of that. Like get into that. And then create a vision board. And, for some that works really well. And for others, it actually doesn't. It really depends on your human design. And, one of the things with human design, because it really depends on an individual, it's actually more challenging for me to specifically talk about it in an episode reading, or in an episode for a podcast of like, if you're this, then this, if you're that, then that, because there's so many different variations. But I will say that for different people, how there's a layer in human design that shows how we work best in terms of discipline, being consistent. What was the other two? Strategy and focus, right? So that's another layer of human design that looks at whether or not those 4 traits, how it works best for you. Some people do very well if they are focused, disciplined, consistent, have strategy. And for others, it's a blend. And then for others, it actually doesn't work well for them to be that intentional in all of those 4 areas. And so for those who are really aligned with being very visual and being very specific, that works well. That's if you have like a super, if your strategy is meant to be designed like that. And then for others, it's not. And so if you feel like it doesn't work for me to actually be so specific and so detailed in what it is that I want, like that's just been really challenging for me. And it never actually has worked for me. I've struggled with that. Then trust that, and trust that for you, it actually doesn't work in your favor. And you don't have to force yourself to fit into that box, even if experts tell you that, right? And what a relief to know that, oh my God, like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. I don't have to play to that prescribed, wisdom of do it this way, right? I get to do it my way. And I think at the end of the day, you don't have to know all the ins and outs of your human design chart to just trust the wisdom that's coming through your body, and know that if that doesn't work for me and I've tried it, I get to move on. I get, my own permission slip to do it my way. And maybe what works for you is just knowing that feeling of, this is how I want to feel. Like I want to feel joyful and abundant, and you don't have to know the hows of how it's going to work. Just know that that's my guiding post, and so I wanted to highlight that because this time of year, there's already so much to do. We don't have to add another layer of pressure. And at the same time, I do invite you to spend some time looking at You know, how all of the great stuff that's happened this year, how can I celebrate that, right? How can I celebrate all the good so that I can recognize that and invite more of the good to come for me for next year, and even writing down a few things of how is it that I do want to feel for next year, and versus having to write down all the details as to make that happen. You know, there is a distinction there. And with all that said, there is outside of human design something that I have been tapping more into of how I want my 2020 and beyond to look like is how I want to show up. And this does go back to inner leadership, and it all ties back to inner leadership, at least for me. And how is it that I want to show up? How do I want to show up in my business? How do I want my clients to show up? And how do I want my business to feel and to look like? And I had a conversation with a business coach, and this is what inspired me to really talk about, this topic in our episode today, is really tapping into the energetics of the business. And one of the things that has actually been challenging for me is, and I don't know if I've shared this in past episodes, but one of the questions of like, who is your target audience? And, I was talking to this business coach, and I told her, like, this is one of those questions that kind of not trigger, but irritates me the most, because I actually don't know all of the nitty gritty details. Like, I don't know, like, I cannot tell you all the demographic of my ideal target client. And if you've been taught that, maybe it's like, oh, like, no, it's really good, you have to know that. And I understand all of the pieces to that. But what works better for me is the energy, right? I work well for a client that matches me energetically. And focusing on the energetics is actually really important, because it actually impacts how I show up, and it impacts how I put my programs together. And that is actually more important than knowing the demographics, because I can have like a 60-year-old woman jive with me, and she might be retired, and a 20-year-old who is just stepping into, a corporate career that also aligns with my energy, and I can work with them both, if that makes sense. So it doesn't make sense for me to necessarily focus on, okay, well, my ideal customer is, she is between 25 to 35, and she is a stressed out corporate employee who wants something new. Like, of course, I would love to work with someone like that who feels energetically aligned with me and wants to play, But more importantly, my person understands the wisdom of the importance of stepping into inner leadership and knowing herself, and there's a level of excellence and integrity, and that how she runs is that she has that courage to step up and show up in the face of challenge, and she is willing to do it. And she is aware of excuses and not afraid to challenge her excuses. And from that space, that is the person that I want to work with. And because of that, that is how I need to show up. And just that conversation with the business coach I was talking to, it changed the energy and the direction of how I really want to take my business and how I want to show up, right? Because how we show up energetically is going to impact how people interact with us, and it's going to interact our energy of the people who really align with us. Because I can put together on a website I can say all the right things, right? The perfect client, and they could be looking for someone, like working with a coach who helps them get out of corporate, gets out of burnout, so they can start something new. Like, I can say all the right things, and I can even touch into the emotional pain points, because that's very that's the typical marketing wisdom. And I'm not necessarily dissing any of this. This is like, it's one way of doing it. And talking about pain points is a strategy, and it works, because it's like when we read something and they get the pain that we're going through, it's like, oh, they understand me. And so I'm not saying that it's in any way bad. And at the same time, I really want to talk about not so much detailing all of that out, but you can tell based on someone's energy from looking at their photos, the colors, and how they talk, right? And even, excuse me, looking at someone's social media, how they show up in social media. You with like you'll know if it's someone you want to work with, and it's less about what they say or the copy. It's more about how they're going about. Like there's an energetic match there. So somebody can say all the right things and just something feels off, and it's nothing about them that feels off. It's just like the energy alignment isn't there, right? And so I think for me what is more important is the intention that I put behind the values of how I see my business and how I see myself, and how like the energy standard of how I expect my clients to show up, and how that works is how I show up. And I hope this makes sense. Like this has really been an aha for me. And even if you don't have a business, if you are happy in your corporate career, it's the same thing. How do you want to show up in your corporate job, right? It's like it's the integrity of like, if you say you're going to do something, are you going to follow through, right? And when you talk about, coworkers, are you going to talk positively about them? All of that is energy of how we show up in the integrity. And that to me is huge. Like integrity is one of my values. And so how I show up, I expect myself to show up with integrity. I'm going to follow through. And then it doesn't mean that I can't change my mind and I have to be a stickler to everything that I say. But if I am going to change, then I'm going to say it versus just let it go and and just move on. And like being intentional is a huge part. So with that, I hope that gives a little bit more clarity for how we can change how we want things to go in terms of the next year or even the next month or whatever. Well, I guess the next year is the next month. But like what I mean is like, there's a lot of pressure a lot of times to do things a certain way because it's worked. And just because it's worked, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And especially if you are more intentional with how you really want to be, right? How you want to be in this world. And so with that said, I have a surprise. I have put together a webinar that I am so excited. I got a little inspiration to offer a free webinar for people for 2020. And why not tie in human design? So this webinar is called Get Aligned, Lead Yourself and Flow with Freedom in 2020 with Human Design. And it is happening on Monday, the 23rd of this month, so December 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And I intentionally scheduled it for the 23rd because it's very close to New Moon in Capricorn, which is happening on Christmas Day. And New Moon is always a great time to set intentions, to plant new seeds. And I figured, well, this is going to be the last New Moon of the year, of the decade, however you want to look at it. And New Moon is always a wonderful time to really set your sights on what's next. And what's next is 2020, right? So I specifically designed it to be around the 25th. So 23rd it is. And if you want more details, I'll have it in the show notes. Just sign up. Let me know after you register. There's a link to tell me what your human design type is. That way I can know how to tailor the webinar. And if you read the copy of the webinar, it is designed to be vague. I don't have all of the details of the benefits of attending the webinar, of what you'll get, of what to expect, because that's the logical side. And I purposely did not cater to the logical side. And as you read it, you'll trust your body of if it's yes or no. Don't think too much about it. I made it super easy because it's free and it's an hour or so, and it will be recorded if you cannot attend live, right? And you just have to register to get the link to the replay. And so there's that. And so we are going to be a little bit more, I'll cover the areas of how to tell in your chart if you are designed to be more focused, more consistent and more disciplined. So I'll cover that, and I'll cover how to best use your energy type and your authority for next year and how you make decisions. So that is my gift to you as a thank you, and to help you tap into your human design a little bit more as you flow in 2020. And then if you do want to have more details of more conversation and questions around your specific chart, I still have openings for my one-on-one readings for the December special. Oh my gosh, I'm so in love with doing readings for people. It's such a great way to really understand yourself. So that offer is still available, and it is limited to 10 people, and that was intentional. And so if that calls to you, that is available, and you can do both. You can attend the webinar, decide if you want to do a one-on-one reading, or you could just do the one-on-one reading, or you could just do the webinar. It's all what feels good for you. So let me know how this episode was for you. I love shares, so feel free to screenshot this, share it on social media, and definitely tag me so I can shine some love on you. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. You can reach out to me through Instagram at michellewong.xo. And yeah, that's it for now. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, morning, wherever you're at. Oh, and I did want to mention, talking about integrity, I always not forget, but I feel like the flow of the episodes, doing like a card pull, I think I'm going to let that go in terms of having to do that with every solo episode and just pull it in as it feels aligned. And because I'm realizing that the more I do these solo episodes, I don't need it all the time, right? And so, yeah, I'm letting that go. And unless it just feels like, oh, I'm feeling like a pull to pull a card, then I will do it. So I wanted to share that because I realized for the past episode I didn't do it, and that actually felt in alignment to not. So anyway, wanted to share that, and have a great day. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Join our free private Facebook group community, Sacred Emergence, to receive more connection, guidance, and support. And take part in our 5-day Inner Confidence Challenge to not only boost your confidence, but to help activate your inner leadership. Details in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Emergence podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and thank you in advance for sharing this with others who can benefit. Until next time.